This is the Griffin Realty Group Ask-A-Griffin podcast, episode number 76. We continue in our agent plan with the question, should you read your client or sell them? Are you a home seller or home buyer who has questions about selling or buying residential property? Or maybe you're an agent who needs direction, but you can't find an easy way to get your answers? Well, then, hey, you are definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Griffin Realty Group and the host of the Ask-A-Griffin podcast. Now, to help you take immediate action, if you need to sell or buy property right now or in the near future, or you want to become a real estate agent, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you at griffincourses.com. That's Griffin courses.com. Okay, let's get started. We have 3 plans at the Griffin, and we are in the third one, the agent plan. So buyer, seller, and agent plan. And the question on the table is under the category of sales. Should you read your client or sell them? So the first real point here is that really there's nothing to sell when you're serving. If you go back to our philosophy, and here at Griffin Realty Group, we believe that you should be a person for others, and that this industry really offers that opportunity where you can have that servant's mentality and you can serve buyers and sellers by empowering them, by giving them the information that they need to make the decisions that they have to make. Okay, very important. So when there's nothing really other than service, you're not selling. You see, a lot of people will see a property and they'll say, well, I'm going to sell this one, or I'm going to sell that one. Well, maybe. There might come a time when you need to tip somebody over and say, hey, look it. You've been empowered with all the information. You have you have a big why you want to buy, why you want to sell. So whatever it might be, but you're there. You're 90% of the way there, and I feel a little fear. So I'm going to suggest you take the blind leap of faith for the last 10%. Sure, that might be a good part of serving. But let's just imagine that you're walking into a home with a buyer. Are you really selling them the house? Meaning, are you walking through and actually selling them on the fact that they should buy that house? Or you're simply guiding them and watching them and witnessing them as they go through this process, as they witness this property amongst others. Look, one of the best pieces of advice is to get buyers out to see 3 or 4 properties, especially early on in their process, so they can make that comparative decision as to what features are most important to them. So they go from the outer ring of the bullseye in. That's just service, because it gives them real physical product to analyze versus being online where everything begins to look the same. So by doing so, you have the chance also to witness them as they go through and see what's important to them. Is it the detail that's important to them? It's where the property is that's important. Is it the light? Is it the size of the rooms? There are a lot of factors that are important and variable to different types of people. So imagine if I go in and I sell, I see what I see, and I see what's important to me as a realtor. So I might start to talk about that, and all the while, I'm not really paying attention to them. Now, of course, as a realtor, as I see them saying something about, well, I don't know if this, I could fit my dining room table. Okay, well, let's sit here and figure that out. And that leads me to the next point. When you're serving, ask good questions, and your client will read their mind out loud. And sometimes we work with that buyer client, especially, that's quiet, and they're observing, and they're analytical, and they're thinking. But you have to even look at them and say, what are you thinking? Read your mind out loud to me so I know, so I can give you the proper guidance on this particular property and what's happening. Because you have to have that two-way relationship, especially with that buyer. Not that it doesn't happen on the sell side. Of course it does. What's important to them, and have them read their mind aloud. And I can make the case that if you're showing the property as an agent to another buyer or a co-agent that brings that buyer, sure, you're going to pull out some of the features. But again, you can even ask the buyer's agent, what's important to your client? What features of these houses are most important? Do you need to know about the neighborhood? Do you need to know? So we ask first. Instead of just selling and talking at people all the time, if we just ask good questions, people will read their mind aloud. I mean, there's no secret here. We're not asking them to say, well, what would you pay for it? I mean, we might under certain circumstances, but let's just presume we're early in the process. Let's just all get transparent. What's important to you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer? What's important to you? And that will allow you to then maybe sell a little bit about the features of the property itself, or highlight them at least. So you see, we're not selling the people. We're selling the product once we know, sure, there's that combination. So really, we're serving the people and then focusing on the features and the benefits of the property that are important to them, right? And the last point here is, by this dialogue going back and forth, you're actually beginning to identify problems and challenges by providing real practical solutions. Let's just say I have a listing coming up that I'm thinking of, and it's a beautiful location. It's a fabulous piece of property. The bones of the house are fantastic, but it needs cosmetic upgrading. To bring it from the time it was built to today's specs could be quite a bit of money. So that's a challenge. So as a buyer comes in, what I'm already prepared to do is talk about that and to say, look, here are, because that will be a challenge, by the way. I'm already ahead of this before the property even gets listed. So I know what will come my way, and the seller knows I know, so I'm prepared. I know that somebody's most likely going to want to redo all the baths and the kitchen. So my point will be, look, here's about what the budget will be, including being proactive in having a kitchen company come in, or having one on demand that they can come in and that I can provide a real practical solution. Say, look, here's the kitchen company's entry-level kitchen and bath, quote, here's a higher end one. And so that gives you some real framework for what you would have. And here are some comparables of, if you pay this price plus what it costs to do the bathrooms and kitchen, here's where you would be with a buffed up, modernized house. And here's what that money bought in town. So I'm solving the problem and challenge. So you see the evolution here? There's no selling really that's going on, because look, how are you going to sell somebody? They either like the location, they either like the property, or they don't. And that goes for when I'm representing the seller or I'm representing the buyer. We have to deal with that first. There is either going to be somebody that wants to be in that physical location or not, but then it's through conversation that you can start to reveal what their fears are, and then you can provide these real and practical solutions. And that's very empowering. Buyers love this, by the way. They love it because we make too many assumptions as realtors that people have all this figured out, and we get nervous. And quite frankly, we're not prepared. How can you not be prepared to walk into a house and say, I can solve what you're worried about by getting a contractor to look at, and by the way, my seller was smart enough to listen to me and put a brand new roof on. So I solved that so I could bring everything down to the cosmetic challenge, which they're not going to do anything about. So we price it appropriately. We negotiate. You see what I'm saying? I'm just out in front of all this with practical solutions. So let me go back and summarize this. Should you read your client or sell them? Well, obviously, you should read them. And that starts by remembering there really is nothing to sell when serving, right? You're serving somebody the information that they need to begin to make a decision on what's most important to them. And you do that by the second point, asking good questions and letting your client read their mind out loud. And then lastly, third, identifying those problems and clearly providing real practical solutions. Let me summarize it this way. Agents just spend too much time trying to sell a particular house versus trying to read what their client is feeling and thinking about the process, not just the product. By asking good questions, an agent can identify, right? They can begin to identify solutions that help their clients make informed decisions rather than being pressured through strange and bizarre sales techniques. All right, remember, you can take immediate action and get started in the right direction if you need to sell or buy a property right now or in the near future, or you're an agent who's existing, or you maybe want to become an agent and you want this plan I'm talking about in its entirety. You can get any of those guides, those plans, by going to griffincourses.com, GRIFFIN courses.com. Also, don't forget, of course, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen, or find us on any of our social media channels so that you don't miss out on any insights each time we upload an episode. We'd also appreciate it if you would comment and share our content with anyone thinking about selling or buying property so that they get the help that they need to be successful. But remember, we sign off on the podcast the same way all the time. Nobody is coming for you. Nobody. So go get to work on a plan for buying or selling property or becoming a successful real estate agent, and we will see you in the next episode to help you move in that positive direction. Thanks again.